Hey everybody, Professor Snart with a really quick check-in here. I'm actually recording this on Sunday morning, so I, like many of you, given our due dates or our compressed time frame here, sort of end up working on the weekend, at least a little bit. Having to do, again, with our 8-week format, but also with the fact that we try to get, pretty regular with these first few units so that once we get into the longer essay assignments, you actually have more time. So the compressed format up front is really kind of designed to be beneficial in the long run, even though I know it doesn't feel like it all the time. So we've just finished up Unit 3. We're looking at Unit 4 due on Tuesday. Um, Unit 4 has us looking further at the short story flight patterns. I'll just click us into it here. One of the things that is important to notice, and if this isn't showing up correctly for you, please let me know, because I see it on my end, but sometimes the instructor and student views are different, is that after you've submitted the work for Unit 3, the paragraph, that triggers, or should trigger, what's called this adaptive release. You can see it in my view here, with some common errors that I often see in Unit 3. So these are fairly minor ones, like punctuation, citation issues. I noticed a lot of people had, instead of like here you'd have like Alexi and then the page number, they had that comma in there. Hardly a big deal, but it's something that we want to flag right now, early on, so that you can do it correctly, when it really matters in the essays. So you may not have received a lot of feedback directly, just the grade. I'm expecting that people will sort of look through these, and you can probably figure out, based on that, what sorts of errors you made, or maybe the replies were pretty thin, relative to what others are doing. Remember, you can always go into other people's posts and see kind of what good replies look like and that sort of thing. Obviously, if you have questions, you can be in touch, but first go through this, again, assuming it's showing up correctly for you. Sometimes Blackboard is really tricky about how things show for me versus you guys. The other thing is that we've had enough assignments, I think, that it's worth mentioning that it's really important, once you complete an assignment or get the grade back, always think of it in terms of just the point value. So our entire course is out of 1,000 points. Essays are up in the hundreds because that's the major thing that we do. But like this paragraph was, I think, out of 30. So if you got 25 out of 30, that's a really good grade. I mean, we're talking about 5 points out of 1,000. But if your mind goes and calculates that as a percent and then thinks of it as a letter grade, it might seem much lower than it really is. So always keep those relative point values in mind. It's important to keep things in sort of perspective that way. And again, a lot of our early assignments here are really about catching some of these basic citation errors, or the short story goes in quotation marks, not italics, just really minor stuff like that. So we catch them early so that they don't show up and repeat themselves when we actually do have those more major point value assignments, the more major writing assignments. Okay, so if we look then down to Unit 4, many people have already gotten into this. We look through a sample student essay, actually about a story that we don't necessarily read, but that's kind of good because it gets you away from thinking about the story per se and really focused on the essay. This is not a perfect essay by any means, but it's a good example of the kind of essay that we write. It's the study of a literary work, in this case Faulkner's Rose for Emily. So there's the essay provided as a PDF. There's a little bit about Faulkner if you're interested. And then a list of things specifically to look for that are, not exactly what we would look for in our essays, since the topic might be different or the story that you write about is going to be different. But the same types of things, focused introduction, clearly stated thesis, all of this stuff is obviously things that we're going to look at, or I'm going to be looking for in our major essays as well. So there's a quick quiz on the sample essay here, a little bit about thesis statements, which again will be important for our writing. As with so much about writing, though, it's easy to look at it kind of in the theoretical here, but it's actually putting it into practice that's more challenging. Writing process stuff, I'm not going to reiterate too much about this. Another short quiz, and then another discussion board, this one focused on flight patterns. So again, just getting us to think a little bit more deeply about that story. So as always, if you have any questions, please be in touch with me. And again, keep, sorry for all the scrolling here, keep your eye on these due dates, especially as the semester starts to ramp up. You have things going on in your life, but in probably other courses as well, so it's really important to stay on top of the work as we get further and further into our fairly short semester.